Hello, Life Groups. We are in the second week of our How to Be a Quitter series, and this past weekend, Pastor Brant challenged us to quit thinking that God can't use us. Now, in John chapter 6, we read the story about feeding of the 5,000 men. But leading up to this story, Jesus had sent the 12 disciples out on a short-term mission trip, and he had also just found out that John the Baptist had been murdered. Jesus was tired. He was mourning the loss of his friend, and he just wanted to get away and be alone. But yet these crowds, these people that were expecting miracles and had seen all the signs that Jesus had done, they continued to follow him, and they just wanted to be close. And Scripture talks about that Jesus had gotten out of the boat and he had compassion on them and he began to teach them. And as the day progressed, and as you might imagine, the crowd started to get hungry. Now, it would have taken roughly a half a year's wages to pay for everyone to eat. So clearly, catering something in was out of the question. But in the background, as the people were talking, Andrew speaks up and said that there's a kid with 5 barley loaves and 2 fish that were available. And not exactly a meal, and especially barley loaves, that's cheap food. That's low income food. It's a third of the price of wheat, and these fish that he had were probably preserved in some way or even pickled. So not exactly what we would consider an ideal meal. But Jesus has the people sit down, and he takes this bread and these fish and gives thanks, and the disciples begin to distribute all this food, enough for 5,000 men and their families to eat until they were full, and there were 12 baskets left over. Now, normally, when we read this story, we focus on the miracle, right? We focus on the provision of God, which is a great place to focus, but today we're going to shift our focus towards the boy and his basket. He didn't have much to offer, and what he did have probably wasn't even enough to fill him up, much less a crowd. It wasn't much, but he gave what he had, and he gave it not even knowing if he would get anything in return or not. And I think so often we look at our own lives and we don't see much, right? We go through life thinking that we don't have much to give, and so therefore, if we don't have much to give, God can't use the little that we do have, or he doesn't want to use the little that we do have, and so we automatically disqualify ourselves, and we spend most of our lives thinking that God doesn't care or he doesn't want to use us. But what I think we fail to realize is that God isn't looking for quantity. He's looking for someone who's willing, someone who's generous. And you've probably heard the quote that God doesn't call the qualified, but he qualifies the called. But I think what we have to wrestle with and what we have to answer for ourselves is, do we truly believe that God can use us? See, God is looking for people just like you and me who are willing to say, I don't have a whole lot. I don't have the most, but what I do have, I'm willing to give. I'm willing to give back what Jesus has given me. It's his in the first place, and so I'm willing to give whatever he's provided me with. That boy that brought his Lunchable to the disciples certainly understood that. He didn't know that his meal was going to be the centerpiece of a miracle. He just showed up and was willing to give what he had when he was asked to. And my prayer for us is that we would be willing to do the same. Enjoy your discussion today.